Ezra chapter 8 recounts the genealogy of those who returned to Jerusalem with Ezra after the Babylonian exile, and before they departed from Babylon, Ezra recognized that there were no Levites among him and his people, and so he sent for ministers of the temple, and he successfully recruited Levites and temple servants to go with him. And it says that the Ahava Canal, Ezra proclaimed a fast. The purpose of the fast was to seek God and ask for protection for the journey that they were about to undergo. He didn't want to ask for a military escort. He wanted to trust God and just trust that God was going to protect them along the way. So after praying and fasting, Ezra entrusted the valuable offerings for the temple to the 12 leading priests. These are things like silver, gold, and sacred articles, and so they were able to make the journey to Jerusalem safely. And then once they arrived in Jerusalem, they rested for 3 days, and on the 4th day, the offerings are weighed and then presented at the temple, and it says that the sacrifices are made to God at that point. In Ezra chapter 9, Ezra becomes distressed because he learns about the fact that the people that returned to Jerusalem with him, the exiles, they had intermarried with the pagan nations surrounding them. It says that Ezra was troubled and he was grieving, and he tore his clothes and pulled out his hair, and then he fell to his knees in prayer. There was a crowd that gathered around Ezra while he prayed, because the people in this crowd were also troubled by the fact that people had married the women from the pagan nations. Ezra confessed that his people had done this, and he acknowledged that God had been very merciful in the past and allowed them to return back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple. And he's deeply troubled by the fact that despite God's mercy, the people still chose to go against his commandments and to marry these pagan women. Ezra feels shame for what his people have done, and he also feels like there's going to be some judgment from God at some point in the future. In chapter 10 of Ezra, Ezra is still praying and making confessions and weeping for what he just discovered about his people, and they begin to repent. And then it says a man named Shechaniah spoke up and encouraged Ezra to take action and lead the people in making a covenant with God to put away their foreign wives and their foreign children. And so that's what Ezra does. He rises up and he makes the leaders and the priests take an oath to follow the laws of God. And then a proclamation is sent all throughout Judah and Jerusalem, and it requires all of the exiles to assemble together. And Ezra confronts them about their unfaithfulness to God. The people agree to separate themselves from their foreign wives and children. And it says a commission is appointed to investigate each case over the course of several months. And to close out chapter 10, which is the last chapter of Ezra, it gives us a list of men who had married foreign women or women associated with pagan nations, and how these men had agreed to send them away.